encore that could really make things tricky if Anthony decides to get a little greedy early in the game, clicking a Swords Dance.
Absolutely. So we are immediately going to see the Miraidon and the Farigiraf hit the field on Jay's side of the field as Rillaboom and Porygon 2 come out for Anthony. Smart lead from Anthony, knowing you have to lead that Rillaboom to get that Miraidon's damage out, and both probably going to want to be pivoting out immediately.
Oh, absolutely. I'd be shocked if we see anything other than a Volt Switch and a U-turn here. We do see an interesting interaction. The Electric Seed from the Farigiraf on Jay's side activating before the grassy terrain can override on the field. So it is a +1 defense boost to that Farigiraf. Feels pretty good when you're staring down two Pokemon that only carry physical moves. And now you do play those mind games of who's going to click Trick Room, who's going to try to Trick Room the other Trick Room. I think this is one of my favorite kind of mental spaces to be in on that turn one, especially from the Porygon 2 side, just because you have that benefit of a little bit extra bulk and reliable recovery from recover if you get the turn wrong.
Okay, so we are going to see the Helping Hand on Miraidon come out here. Maybe just going to drop a Draco Meteor as it does go into that Rillaboom. Without the Electric Drain, it is still a one-hit KO through the Assault Vest. Zhejiang taking an early lead of 3-4 as Eerie Impulse going to go into that Miraidon that already didn't really want to stay on that field at -2. Now going to be at -4 as Groudon is going to be able to come out very, very safely in front of Jay's Miraidon and Farigiraf.
Oh my goodness. I know we know that Miraidon's a very strong Pokemon. It has the choice specs, and even with the Helping Hand boost, you don't have the boost from your Hadron engine. With Terrain, that's just a natural Helping Hand choice specs Draco Meteor, and Rillaboom's supposed to be a bulky Pokemon, right?
Yeah, especially with Assault Vest. Miraidon just throws out so much damage. It shocks me every time it gets a one-hit KO. Landorus coming out on Jay's side, going to be able to dodge that Precipice Blade. So Jay playing around these perfectly. As with that Electric Seed, that Precipice Blades did not do nearly enough. Foul Play going out into the Groudon, going to do a little less than a quarter. As a Foul Play going into the Landorus, actually somehow doing more.
Yeah, and good for Anthony at the very least getting something out of that turn. You're able to Foul Play on whatever wants to switch in from the Miraidon's side. And from Anthony's position, I was thinking, this is a pretty good spot to get a Swords Dance up had I remembered that the Farigiraf on Jay's side does carry Foul Play, and so you're just boosting that damage even more if you do try to get those attack boosts.
Yeah. So an important thing to notice also is that the Groudon moved before the Farigiraf, so it's not some sort of brave, negative speed-natured Groudon with dropping its speed as well naturally. So I'm not sure what Farigiraf could be running or if Groudon can even underspeed Farigiraf ever. But if it could, an important thing to note.
Yes, and we are going to see another Helping Hand come out from this Farigiraf. If it can't do damage by itself, it's going to boost up its partners as an Earth Power comes out, and that's another clean KO from Jay's side, just really taking advantage of fast special damage to do a lot to break apart Anthony's team. He does finally get Trick Room up, twisting the dimensions, and we'll see if that fourth Pokemon on Anthony's side has any answer to this Landorus. And it unfortunately does not look like it, no.
So I wanted to call out one thing that, when we were reviewing these two players' teams individually, we didn't get the chance to really compare them to one another. And normally on paper you'd say, okay, I'd give Groudon a slight bit of an edge versus Miraidon, given that it can hit it super effectively. That Hadron Engine boosted Draco Meteor is not going to feel good for Groudon.
Oh, no.
But I would give the slight edge to Groudon if it's able to get its positioning right. But as we just saw, there was one Groudon that came out on top. It's a legendary. It's no restricted, but it's Landorus.
Oh, yeah. I think we've already seen this Landorus proving its worth. It does just so much damage outside of Miraidon, and the type coverage, I think, you work together perfectly. The Miraidon really doesn't love going up against, grass types, ground types, steel types. And those are all things that with Earth Power, Sandsear Storm, and Sludge Bomb, this Landorus can hit super effectively. Terastallization going to come out on Anthony's side, wanting to get Raging Bolt away from that ground weakness. And even with that Terastallization, I don't know how Anthony gets around the Landorus Incarnate on Jay's side without hitting it with a Draco Meteor.
Yeah, so not wanting Trick Room to be reversed here, the Sun boosted, so Photosynthesis boosted, Life Orb boosted Thunderbolt going to be able to take out that Farigiraf as Porygon 2 launching an extra bit of insurance with that foul play into Farigiraf. Didn't do all that much. As a big Earth Power came out onto Raging Bolt, looking to be enough to two-hit KO from this range thanks to the Life Orb chip.
Oh, certainly. And because it's Life Orb, not the Assault Vest version for a Raging Bolt, that Earth Power is still doing just a ton of damage. Of course, the Twisted Dimensions still remain. There is no priority on Jay's side on the field right now. It really is just going to come down to the targeting for this Draco Meteor on Anthony's side. Who's he going to be able to hit? And with this Porygon 2, you do have Eerie Impulse to slow down both of these special attackers. I don't know if it'll be enough just because the damage output from Porygon 2 is so lacking with a foul play into both of these targets.
Yeah, so Anthony using his Terra to go into the Terra Fairy, very smart. Jay able to preserve his Terra, and I think we're going to see a big thought from Miraidon here as the big light bulb comes out on its head, and it is going to go for a Terra Electric here to not be affected by that Draco Meteor super effectively. And Anthony, interestingly, going for a Protect here. I think he needed to keep the offensive pressure on a bit. But knowing that if he goes for a Draco Meteor here, he's going to be stuck at -2 for the rest of the match. Throwing out an Eerie Impulse into the Miraidon as an Earth Power comes out onto Porygon 2 is not going to be a two-hit KO. And then Electro Drift also going to go into that Porygon 2 slot. Might just be able to pick up a two-hit KO, and it is enough even through that Eerie Impulse. So it's going to look like the end of Anthony's rope just for this game one here, and he's going to have to adjust his plans for how he wants to take on this titan of a team that Jay has constructed.
Oh, absolutely. And just seeing the damage there, that's at -2. That's half of the normal damage that Terra Electro Drift would do to Porygon 2, and it did looked like about 60% to this Porygon 2. Another extremely bulky Pokemon typically, but at least Anthony does get to pick up another KO and knocks out the opposing Miraidon with a not super effective, regularly effective Draco Meteor before being sent back to its Pokeball. Still wondering what that fourth Pokemon from Jay's side could have been.
Yeah, so as I said, I think Anthony did have a path to victory in that endgame. Going for that Draco Meteor, as we did see, I don't think he thought it was going to KO Miraidon. I had a hunch it was, thanks to the Photosynthesis, the Life Orb, and being Draco Meteor.
Yeah.
Even without a super effective hit, probably was going to be enough. So had that happened, had an Eerie Impulse gone onto Landorus, and it would be stuck on the field at -2, going for foul plays and recovers, and may have been able to stall out that end. Given we didn't know that or what Jay's fourth Pokemon was, I do think the path to victory there was taking advantage of your Trick Room turns, keeping the offensive pressure on, and, maybe hoping for some crits eventually.
Yeah. And if nothing else, you do at least get that knowledge of the fourth Pokemon from Jay's side. I think that's the bigger angle that I would be trying to play towards, is trying to figure out as much information as you can get out of that end game. It's already a pretty dire situation. Like you mentioned, you might need some critical hits, a little bit of luck to go your way in order to actually win that game one. But if nothing else, you want to try to play to get as much information in that end game as possible to allow your game plan for games 2 and a potential game 3 to be as well informed as you can and give you the best shot, because as we saw from Jay's side, the amount of damage that he can throw off with the Miraidon, with the Landorus, and especially with Helping Hand from Farigiraf is just going to be a lot to deal with Anthony's team not having an option that's immediately faster than all of those Pokemon on Jay's side.
I think based on the way Jay was playing it, he had to have Iron Hands or Ogerpon him back, knowing that I can take on this Raging Bolt. I'm curious, very curious, how Anthony's going to adjust here going into Game 2. But I think it is important, as you said, information is key.
Yes.
If Anthony got a bit more information, maybe knowing how to play this Game 2 a bit better, but getting the information that my Draco Meteor one-shots Miraidon 2 times over.
That's very, very important too, because it allows you to play a little bit more aggressively, especially if you're able to force the Terastallization elsewhere on Jay's team. You know that even if you drop your own special attack from a Draco Meteor, as long as it's super effective, your -2 Draco will still pick up that one-hit KO.
Yeah.
The different damage rolls that you're able to put on pressure on Jay's team, assuming you can get speed control, and for that from Anthony's side, I think if he wants speed control, it's either going to be that Trick Room, or what I would like to see an adaptation into that Flutter Mane gives you the opportunity, or at least the mind games, of clicking Icy Wind immediately to allow your Groudon, to allow the Raging Bolt, the Ogerpon, the chance at least to outspeed the rest of Jay's team.
Yeah, without question. I think I'm not going to say Jay played his whole hand, but Jay delivered a lot of information to Anthony that game. Anthony now holds a lot more information than Jay had, other than, you know, the fourth Pokemon on Jay's team. But leading strongly here for Anthony, as we are going to see the Photosynthesis boost that this Flutter Mane gets, and we see the attack boost for Iron Hands, no surprise there. I'm going to guess it's going to be a speed boost, but I could be wrong. It is a speed boost for that Flutter Mane, so with those choice specs and that +1 speed from Photosynthesis, going to be putting a lot more pressure into Anthony's team on this turn 1 alone.
Oh, absolutely. The big benefit for Jay, at least with this lead, is you do have fake out pressure onto the Groudon immediately. I can't, just fire off Precipice Blades without a little bit of caution on that side. But for Anthony, and for this entire board state, I think it's a big welcome to Regulation G. We finally get abilities as well as held items for all of these Paradox Pokemon, the Iron Hands that we've seen, basically running through old formats in Scarlet and Violet without an ability. As it looks like Anthony's going to step on the gas pretty early here, trying to make a hard read onto what Jay is going to do with the Terastallization turn 1 as well.
Yeah, so we do see this Terastallization from Miraidon, going to be wanting its full damage output on turn 1. Probably going to be wanting to try to Volt Switch here. As a free Fake Out can go into this Groudon here, as it does. No Protects coming out, very smart. As Flutter Mane does go for an Icy Wind, going to drop the speed of this Miraidon and this Iron Hands. We are going to find out, is Groudon able to outspeed Miraidon here at -1? It is. So very, very key information for Anthony to know that Jay's Miraidon is not fast enough to outspeed his whatever speed his Groudon is.
Yes, or it's information on Jay's side, knowing that however fast his Miraidon is, that Anthony's Groudon is trained to at least be pretty speedy to allow it to outspeed this Miraidon, whether it is max speed with a timid nature or a modest. Either way, it does just pick up another one-hit KO on this Flutter Mane. Unfortunately, we did see the critical hit, so we won't know if that Volt Switch just KOs without. I would have a hunch and think it probably does, even without the critical hit. But another KO early in this game for Jay, and it looks like he is just content to keep trading away pieces, or at least taking Anthony's pieces and getting that Landorus on the field in a strong position against this Groudon.
Yeah, so Jay playing Miraidon exactly how it wants to be played from that position. Get in, get out, take a KO, don't take damage. We all of a sudden are in a 4-3 where the most damage that Jay took was an Icy Wind. And Anthony lost a Pokemon.
Anthony lost a Pokemon.
A very, very favorable, I can't even say a trade, very favorable turn for Jay there. Doing what the team needs to do, getting in this Landorus, which can now threaten a lot of damage onto Groudon and a lot of damage into Rillaboom, able to get a Protect now that it's freshly onto the field and hasn't done anything. And even this Iron Hand's probably sitting pretty safe given the amount of bulk it has.
Yeah, maybe Jay didn't have the same thought there. It does end up switching that Pokemon back out. Likely the fourth, it is going to be the Fergaraf making its first appearance on the field, and will block the Fake Out with its Iron Armor Tail ability. So a Sludge Bomb right away into this Rillaboom, the Assault Vest saving it there for at least one moment. But as you mentioned, just so much damage on the special side that Jay is able to throw off, and Precipice Blades, at least without the Electric Seed to the defense boost on Fergaraf, looks like a 2-hit KO. Maybe not anymore now that it's got 6% of its health back with that grassy terrain.
Absolutely. So, again, Jay playing how the team needs to be played. Lots of offense and respecting all of Anthony's possible options. Anthony could have put out a lot of damage there, but he's thinking, okay, I can probably take this damage trade if it happens. I'm going to get my Fergaraf on the field. I don't want to have to deal with any priority. Jay playing each of his Pokemon perfectly here. And Anthony kind of left in the dust in this game.
Yeah, I think there, of course, is a pathway back, but you have to get basically every turn right from this point onward. The Terastallization going to come out on Anthony's side. I think we saw in move selection. This will be going onto the Rillaboom. Could potentially save it from another Sludge Bomb. I think it might be close, even with the Terrestrialization for the Sludge Bomb. Not super effective to get this KO.
And it is not enough to hang on. Even with that Assault Vest, that Landorus is just crazy strong. I don't know how much investment that Rillaboom has, but wow, I really expected that to hang on. As a Fire Punch going into that Farigiraf. And, you know, as I mentioned earlier, that Heat Crash not being the option, I think being a bit of a detriment to Anthony there, as it's not able to KO the Farigiraf.
Yep, and that's where you also don't have the Terra Fire option on a Groudon to boost that damage as well. You know, you want to click in that position, your move that is 100% accurate, that you know you will get damage off onto this Farigiraf with, especially because of the Grassy Terrain recovery, the Farigiraf likely not in range of another Precipice Blades at neutral attack stage. Anthony does reveal his fourth Pokemon though. The Ogerpon is possibly the fastest thing on the field. It likely is going to be faster naturally than this Landorus Incarnate.
Yep.
So he does threaten a lot of damage here, as Landorus will just protect. Jay also likely seeing that the Ogerpon should be faster, and will just be content giving away this Farigiraf in order to get a threat on the field, either the Miraidon that'll be faster and threatens KOs at both of Anthony's Pokemon, or the Iron Hands with its Fake Out to give the Landorus just a little bit more wiggle room with what it wants to click on this next turn.
Yeah, so Jay smartly protecting that Landorus, wanting to get a free switch into either of his electric types here. Either get a Fake Out off, or possibly just throw out a Draco Meteor and, if I had to guess, get a one-hit KO on either of these Pokemon, 90% of the time, of course.
Yeah.
But we do see the Iron Hands come out, is going to be able to threaten Fake Out pressure, as Anthony now has to make a choice. Am I going to protect both of my Pokemon, or am I just going to go for a big offensive play that might throw Jay off as he tries to pivot?
Yes, I missed what Anthony clicked, so I'll be waiting in suspense just as much as everyone at home is to see what this turn's going to play out for both of these players. As no protects on Anthony's side, Fake Out goes into the Ogerpon, will flinch it, and the Sludge Bomb will just double up to pick up that KO as well. Now, I've seen Anthony's Groudon do a lot of miraculous things. Again, he did not drop a set in winning the Midseason Showdown all day yesterday. I don't know if this Groudon can beat a Flying type and a Miraidon with the Sun now gone.
Yeah.
I just don't know. Even if you're able to get to a 1v1 situation against this Landorus Incarnate, without the Sun, I don't know how much damage your Fire Punch is even going to be doing to the Landorus.
Yeah, I think Anthony wishing he could go back in time here and click Gravity with Cresselia to get that Landorus down on the ground and make sure those Precipice Blades don't miss even into the Iron Hand slot. But that Genie floating up in the air and that Earth Power, I just saw your expression,
Yeah.
Jacob. You are shocked at how much damage that did.
Despicable how much damage a neutral Earth Power does to a restricted legendary Pokemon. See, that's the thing about Landorus Incarnate, and anyone who's spoken to me over the last 4 or 5 months knows I'm not a huge fan of that Pokemon. It's one of those that feels extremely difficult for me to use, but always the strongest Pokemon on the field for my opponents. And I think in this situation, Anthony's likely feeling the same way, as that's going to be a 2-0 victory for Zhejiang, with Miraidon picking up yet another KO in the set.
Yeah, Jay is a force to be reckoned with. He is just an incredible player, and as we saw in that game, positioned every turn to make sure he minimized the amount of damage he took while doing the most damage he could do.